Yeah, welcome. Thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about dark pools, everybody's favorite topic in the world when you're trading. We love those dark pools. Not usually what you hear, but I want to get to a couple of basics. I want to get to how you can utilize them, at least their existence, to help you with your trading in terms of setups, what you can look for. But everything starts with the basics in the market of what a dark pool is. And I want to differentiate between a couple of things, because anytime, and we're going to have to look at a level 2 and a time and sales here, because when you look at a level 2, you've got your buyers and you've got your sellers and you've got your print on the tape. Now, everything, when you hear me say something like lit, anybody that displays an order, hey, look, I'm willing to buy all these buyers, willing to buy 41,000 shares on Fisker, on EdgeX here. Those are lit orders. Those are orders displaying in the order book for everybody to see that they're willing to buy and sell. But when you look at the time and sales, I'm going to spoiler alert for you. All of these prints that are coming off, D, 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 D. The vast majority of them are D, which is a dark pool. So everything that is not a displayed order is a dark pool print. All of them. You're either a displayed order or you're trading it in the dark. But there are different types of non-lit orders. And the different ones that are important here are what we talked about yesterday, iceberg orders. Those are also hidden. You can have a buyer on the bid showing 100 shares with 10,000 underneath it. That's a hidden order. The top part is lit, the rest is a hidden order. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about dark pools, that's not what they're referring to. They're not referring necessarily to an iceberg order. So I want to throw that out there. There are lit orders. There are orders behind, like an iceberg, where we're not going to include them when we're talking about those dark pools. Dark pools, to me, from what most people are talking about, are these prints that go off inside the book, at the touch, that most people can't get. Now, if you day trade the world like we do, we have access to some of this order flow, and we can use those gateways. But just because they're there and you can use them doesn't mean you always want to trade through. The other thing I want to talk about when we get into dark pools are, as I showed you on level 2, prints that are happening right now. Like Amazon's at the high of day. You saw D prints going off, people buying off dark fills at 51. But the other type of dark pool order you might get is something called a block print. Now, a block print can be an agreed upon trade that happens off the book and goes in the dark, and they have 24 hours before they have to report it. So you can see these prints go off, and sometimes they'll be represented by a wick on the chart, or it can happen as a gigantic block that just, you see a big volume spike and the stock doesn't move. They could just be late reporting a dark pool print. The easiest tell for that is if you see a huge volume spike randomly in the middle of the day and the stock doesn't move, you're probably looking at a dark block print. A lot of times they are not going to move the overall market. At times, if they're exceptionally big, they can matter. But I wanted to get that one out of the way for you. Another thing, we get this question all the time. What's going on at 8 a.m. in the morning? Why do I always see these crazy prints? Block prints from overnight fills. So you can have entire books that show overnight fills as a single series of prints, sometimes at 8 o'clock, sometimes randomly in the pre-market. So if you're ever watching a stock in the pre-market and you see those spikes come in at around 8, maybe to 8:05 Eastern time, that is what they are. You don't want to trade off of them because they are just overnight dumps. Now, the real question I think everyone's interested in is, well, how can you utilize what you see going on with dark prints to your advantage? So it's all about trading here. What do you do at a key? What can you do at a key level? I'm just going to use the example of Amazon here at the 151 because it happens to be the high of the day. And something that you're looking for, as we always talk about with breakouts or rejections of price levels, is what happens at that key price. If 151 is resistance, what's going on above 151 when it's trying to break? We mentioned this when it came to spread the other day. If the spread starts opening up, then that can mean the buyers aren't following it through that resistance point. Well, how can you utilize or think about dark pools in a way above that 151 level? Well, if we get above 151, let's just say, and then we end up getting to, and I'll put Amazon in here for you guys, you end up getting to say 151 and 10 cents, right? It gets up to that price, and the sellers on the offer are only getting fills on the dark pools. If I see all D prints, there's people offering, trying to get that scalp 10 cents, and nobody's getting hit except for dark pool prints. If I notice that and the stock comes back into the downside, underneath that 151, then a lot of times what I'm going to look for in a situation like that is, okay, people could not get filled. Nobody was willing to buy outside of the dark at that 150.10 level. So suddenly, instead of the 151 mattering to me, I'm going to look at that level as my key price level. And the good thing about it is if you follow a trend, if you go long dip in front of it, maybe you can hold for some breaks at 151, but I might not be interested until I see a bid above that 10. The other thing to consider is if you're looking to short a price range instead of the actual price, if you see a level where only the dark pools are getting filled above a resistance zone, sometimes you can move your stop to above there looking for that short, knowing that there is some dark liquidity. It can give you an entrance point on the other side of it. You file it away when you notice that, and then suddenly when it breaks, you could look for the 151.10 long, which oddly enough is actually what's happening right now as Amazon's going through 151.10. So you can look at those levels where when it gets to the key price and stalls, you look at that tape, and if on the tape you are seeing nobody is getting filled on the lit market, that can indicate that there is a dark seller there. Now, obviously, just because there was a dark seller at one point does not automatically mean there is going to be a dark seller when it gets back there the second time. But that's what trading's all about. When you use support and resistance in the first place, it is the presumption that, hey, there was resistance at 151 before, I'm looking for it to be there and be a key level again. It is always looking at what happened in the past to then give you some kind of an edge in the future. So I like to not look for dark pool printing at the even. I look for big order flow away from it to give you a secondary level that you can work off of. One other thing that I would consider, and this is something that my partner Sean has said a lot of times on the show, where you see on your tape a bunch of tiny little one share order flow fills. Now, there are times when you can see program buyers hunting for liquidity in the dark with tiny order flow, sub 100 lots. Now, if your style of trade is more looking for that key price level where some people are looking for fills in the dark, what you might want to do is filter your time in sales so that you're only looking at round lots. Whether it's 100 lots, depending on the stock, you might want to customize it to whatever the lot size might be. You're not going to have the same filter on Amazon as you would on Fisker. Fisker is a $1 stock, Amazon's a $151 stock. So you might choose 500 shares, you might choose 100 shares. Whatever gives you that look of ignoring some of that small order flow so that you can see where the big and real dark pools are printing, because that's where your edge is going to be. At the end of the day, the shift that happened in the market was that we have more dark order flow, and you just want to be able to find where the significant levels are going to be. So that's what to look out for on your level 2 and your time in sales when it comes to dark pools. Good luck, everybody.
Nice. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, nice in-depth